Do you believe it? There was a car born with one sole purpose: to defeat the legendary Shelby Cobra. But the crazy part is, it didn't come from a fancy design studio at GM or Ford. It was drawn with chalk on the concrete floor of a small workshop in California. The engine was placed right next to the driver. The scorching exhaust pipes ran alongside the legs, and it had a bizarre chassis like nothing ever seen before. Its name was Bill Thomas Cheetah, a mysterious, dangerous car, and one of the most rebellious stories in American automotive history. Today, let's dive into the rebel that once made Detroit tremble. If Carroll Shelby was the man who made a name for himself with the Cobra, then Bill Thomas was a legend of a completely different kind. A true gearhead, born in California, raised with the roar of engines and the smell of garage grease. Bill Thomas wasn't a lab engineer. He was a man of real-world experience. In the 1950s and 60s, people knew Bill for building insanely fast Corvettes that dominated American drag strips. He had a gift for turning Chevrolets into speed monsters that everyone feared. Eventually, Bill's talent caught the attention of General Motors, the biggest automaker in the US at the time. While GM had publicly pledged a no-racing policy, behind the scenes, they quietly asked Bill Thomas to handle the kind of work they couldn't officially be associated with. Bill accepted, but his ambitions didn't stop at modifying someone else's cars. He wanted to create a beast of his own, something that could challenge the entire world, built with nothing but the skill and mindset of a pure-blooded American garage mechanic. When Bill Thomas began to dream of the Cheetah, the American racetrack was being dominated by a name that gave every automaker nightmares: the Shelby Cobra. Small, powerful, and dangerously quick, the Cobra was so effective that even General Motors, America's #1 giant, felt the heat. The problem? GM had tied its own hands. Due to political and public pressure, GM had officially declared it would no longer participate in racing. But inside the company, everyone knew. Leaving the racetrack was as good as handing it over to the competition. Their solution was bold: go guerrilla. And Bill Thomas was the man they chose. The best hot rodder on the West Coast, with no official ties to GM Vince Piggins, head of GM's high-performance division, secretly backed the project. He sent Bill the best that Chevrolet had to offer: the most powerful engines, the strongest transmissions, the finest parts. There was only one goal: create a secret weapon to destroy the Cobra on the track. And the name of that weapon was Cheetah. If the Shelby Cobra was a small, agile serpent, then Bill Thomas's Cheetah was truly a wild beast like no other. From the very start, the Cheetah defied all conventional design thinking. Bill Thomas and his partner Don Edmonds didn't use complex blueprints or modern design studios. Instead, they laid all the Chevrolet parts on the garage floor and used white chalk to sketch the layout directly on the concrete. What they created didn't look like anything else at the time. The Corvette 327 V8 engine wasn't placed in the front as usual. It was shoved so far back toward the firewall that the driver had to wedge their legs around both sides of the engine, with exhaust pipes glowing red-hot right beneath them. The exhaust routed directly over the driver's feet, so close that a single mistake could melt your shoes. The chassis, crafted from ultra-light, ultra-strong chromoly steel, welded with equipment typically used in the mining industry. Everything on the Cheetah was optimized for one goal: lightest possible, strongest possible, fastest possible. But in return, this car was hot and dangerous in the most literal sense. Carrying the ambition to overthrow the Shelby Cobra, the Cheetah officially stepped into the spotlight in 1963. But from its very first laps, its fate was anything but easy. The planned debut at the Los Angeles Times Grand Prix, expected to be a perfect entrance, ended in disaster. Driver Don Horvath lost control during a practice lap, and the Cheetah slid off, smashing the front end. The beautiful aluminum body had to be replaced with fiberglass, lighter, but far less refined. Soon after, at the 1964 Riverside race, veteran driver Jerry Titus experienced firsthand the Cheetah's heat. A burst radiator hose caused the car to spin out of control and crash off the track. But not everything was bad. In the hands of those bold enough to tame it, the Cheetah still managed to shine. Most notably, Ralph Salyer's Cheetah, rebuilt into an open-top roadster nicknamed the Crowell Cheetah, claimed 11 victories between 1964 and 1965, proving just how much potential lay behind that wild design. Though the Cheetah's speed rivaled any Cobra, its deadly flaws became more apparent with every race. First, the heat. The Cheetah's cockpit was basically a mobile oven. With the engine pushed up against the driver, exhaust pipes running just underfoot, cabin temperatures could get hot enough to literally melt racing shoes. Many drivers had to quit mid-race simply because they were overheated to the point of exhaustion. Next, the chassis. The frame was initially built just for show cars, so when thrown into real races, it was too soft and prone to twisting under hard acceleration. At times, the rear wheels would even splay out of alignment when the throttle was pushed, a dangerously unpredictable scenario. But the final blow didn't come from fire or speed. It came from the rule book. In 1964, racing regulations changed. To qualify, a car manufacturer now had to produce at least 1,000 units, up from the previous minimum of 100. That was the death knell for Bill Thomas. How could a small California garage possibly produce 1,000 Cheetahs? GM pulled its support. The project collapsed. And to make matters worse, in 1965, Bill Thomas's workshop caught fire, taking with it the unfinished dreams of the Cheetah. The workshop was gone, the project dead, and Bill Thomas stepped away from the scene. And yet, strangely, the name Cheetah never died in the hearts of American car lovers. Only about 19 to 23 fully built Cheetahs were ever made, but each one that survived that era became a priceless treasure. Because the Cheetah wasn't just a race car, it was a symbol of American ingenuity and rebellious spirit. In 2013, Bill Thomas's son, William P. Thomas III, officially registered the Bill Thomas Cheetah trademark, preserving his father's legacy in the world of performance cars. By 2014, an incredibly emotional event took place at Road America, the 50th anniversary of the Cheetah's birth. The remaining Cheetahs gathered once again, watched with pride by the Thomas family and thousands of fans. The Cheetah was never the car with the most wins. It wasn't the name that dominated legendary tracks, but what made people remember the Cheetah was never about the numbers. It was about the spirit. Cheetah stood for a wild America, a place where guys without degrees, without labs, without modern tech, could still build something that made the world take notice. Bill Thomas didn't need a corporation behind him. He just needed a small garage, a few friends, a mind that dared to think differently, and a pair of hands stained with grease. The Cheetah proved one thing. In the world of automobiles, dominance doesn't always come from money or big brands. Sometimes it's the rebels, the ones called crazy, reckless, or wild, who become legends. And the Cheetah, though its time was brief, still lives on as one of the greatest challengers in American racing history. Because sometimes, the most unforgettable story isn't about who won, It's about who dared to challenge everything. And that is the story of the Bill Thomas Cheetah. Perhaps the wildest and most dangerous car ever born on American soil. An imperfect icon, yet full of pride. A legacy that didn't need victory to be unforgettable. What about you? If you had the chance to drive it once in your life, would you dare to sit behind the wheel of this rebel beast? Let me know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next legendary car story. See you next time.